The fading sun dipped low behind the trees, painting streaks of orange and crimson across the sleepy town of Maplewood. Officer Jonathan Reed leaned back in his patrol car, one hand resting lazily on the steering wheel as the hum of the engine filled the quiet evening air. It had been a slow day, no traffic stops, no disturbances, just the peaceful rhythm of a small-town shift winding to an end. But peace rarely lasts long. A sudden, piercing sound sliced through the calm, a child's cry. Jonathan's eyes snapped toward the sidewalk, and his heartbeat quickened. From the corner of his vision, he saw a small figure sprinting toward him, a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, barefoot and breathless, tears glistening on her cheeks. Her pink dress was wrinkled and dusty, her tangled brown hair sticking to her face. She stopped just in front of his car, chest heaving, and gasped between sobs, "Please, please follow me home." Her voice cracked with desperation. Something in those wide, terrified eyes, a mix of fear, confusion, and fragile hope, told Jonathan this was no ordinary situation. He didn't hesitate. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Comment below with your country and region, and let us celebrate the kindness that connects us all. Now, let's begin. Jonathan quickly got out of the car, kneeling to meet the girl at eye level. His voice softened as he said, "Hey there, sweetheart. My name's Officer Reed. What's your name?" The girl's lower lip trembled. Susie." "Okay, Susie," he said gently. "Can you tell me what's wrong?" Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "Mommy, she won't wake up." Jonathan's stomach tightened. Without another word, he reached for her hand. "Show me, okay? I'm right behind you." Susie nodded and took off running, her small hand gripping his tightly. They moved through narrow streets lined with modest houses, some neat, others worn and weary. Jonathan's instincts screamed that something was wrong. Every few steps, Susie would glance back to make sure he was still there. As they walked, he noticed details that made his chest ache: chipped paint, broken mailboxes, the faint sound of barking dogs echoing from somewhere distant. The sun had slipped below the horizon now, and the world was bathed in the dim, golden light of dusk. Finally, they stopped in front of a small house at the end of a quiet street. The front yard was overgrown with weeds, and the screen door hung crookedly from its hinges. The porch light flickered weakly, barely cutting through the growing darkness. Susie pointed toward the house, her voice trembling. "She's inside, she's not moving." Jonathan's pulse quickened. "Stay right here for me, okay?" he said as he pushed the door open. The discovery. The air inside was heavy and stale. The faint smell of unwashed dishes and something sour lingered. A narrow hallway led him to a small living room cluttered with unpaid bills, empty soup cans, and a blanket crumpled on the couch. He could tell someone had been struggling here, living on the edge of exhaustion. "Mommy?" Susie's soft voice echoed behind him. Jonathan followed her into a small bedroom. There, lying on a worn-out bed, was a young woman in her mid-20s. Her skin was pale, her lips dry. She wasn't dead. Jonathan could see the faint rise and fall of her chest, but her breathing was shallow and weak. He rushed to her side, checking her pulse. It was there, faint but steady. Relief washed over him, followed by urgency. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Reed. I need an ambulance at 214 Oak Street. Female, mid-20s, unresponsive but breathing. Possible dehydration or illness." As he spoke, he noticed Susie standing frozen in the doorway, her small body shaking. He knelt beside her. Hey, she's alive, okay? Help is coming." The little girl nodded, trying to be brave, but tears kept falling. "She's been sick, for days. I tried to make her soup, but I couldn't reach the stove." I didn't want to leave her, but I got scared. Jonathan's throat tightened. The courage it must have taken for this child to run out alone, searching for help, was unimaginable. Within minutes, flashing red lights painted the street outside. Paramedics rushed in, lifting the woman, Mariah, onto a stretcher. Susie clung to Jonathan's uniform as they carried her mother away. "I'll stay with you," he promised, his voice steady. "I won't leave you, Susie." The hospital waiting room smelled of antiseptic and fatigue. Harsh fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Susie sat curled up in a chair beside Jonathan, clutching a small stuffed rabbit she'd brought with her. Hours passed slowly. Nurses came and went. The clock ticked louder with each passing minute. Finally, a doctor appeared, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a weary smile. "Officer Reed?" Jonathan stood. "How is she?" "She's stable now," the doctor said. "Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and untreated pneumonia. She's lucky someone got her here when they did." Jonathan exhaled deeply. Relief flooded him, but so did sadness. "Is she going to be okay?" "With rest and proper care, yes," the doctor assured him. "But she's been running herself into the ground." She mentioned working 2 jobs, single mother, no family nearby. She just pushed too hard. Jonathan looked down at Susie, who had fallen asleep in the chair, her tiny head resting against his arm. "She's been through a lot," he murmured. The days that followed. Over the next few days, Jonathan visited the hospital whenever his shift allowed. Each time, Susie's face lit up when she saw him. She'd run to hug him, eager to tell him about her mom's progress. Mariah was slow to recover, her body weak from weeks of neglecting her own health. When Jonathan finally met her awake, she looked frail but grateful. "You're the officer who helped my daughter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "You've got a brave little girl, ma'am. She saved your life." Tears welled in Mariah's eyes. "She shouldn't have had to. I tried so hard to keep everything together, but I guess I broke before I could ask for help." Jonathan felt a lump in his throat. He had seen hardship before, addiction, neglect, poverty, but this was different. This was a story of love stretched too thin. He noticed the same things every time he visited: the faded clothes in a plastic bag at the foot of the hospital bed, the pile of unpaid bills on the tray table, the way Mariah's eyes flickered with guilt when she looked at her daughter. He knew that once she was discharged, they'd go right back to that same fragile existence. And he couldn't let that happen. A quiet plan of kindness. Without saying anything to Mariah, Jonathan began making calls. He contacted local charities, community groups, and even a few of his fellow officers. He told them about the little girl who had run barefoot through the streets to save her mother. About the quiet strength of a woman who worked herself sick to give her daughter a better life. The response was overwhelming. Within days, donations began pouring in: food, clothes, groceries, money for bills. A local handyman offered to repair the broken steps on their porch. A group of officers volunteered to repaint the house. Neighbors from across town dropped off toys and school supplies for Susie. It was as if one small act of courage had sparked an entire town's compassion. A home transformed. When Mariah was finally discharged, Jonathan offered to drive them home. She hesitated, embarrassed. "You've already done too much," she said softly. "I insist," he replied with a smile. "It's part of the service." As the car pulled up to the little house on Oak Street, Mariah gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. The yard had been trimmed and cleaned. The front steps were new. The walls, once dull and cracked, now gleamed with fresh white paint. Through the window, she could see a basket of groceries on the counter and flowers on the table. What is this?" she stammered. Jonathan grinned. "Your neighbors wanted to help. You're not alone anymore." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she turned to Susie, who was already running toward the house, squealing with joy. Inside, everything smelled of soap and new beginnings. The fridge was stocked. The floors were swept. A small note sat on the kitchen counter that read, "Welcome home, Mariah and Susie, from your friends in Maplewood." For the first time in months, maybe years, Mariah felt the weight lift from her shoulders. A community reborn. News of Susie's bravery spread quickly through the town. Local papers ran a small piece about the little girl who saved her mother, and donations continued to arrive. The community started checking in regularly, offering rides, childcare, and friendship. Mariah soon found a steady job at a nearby grocery store, one with flexible hours so she could spend more time with her daughter. Their laughter slowly filled the once quiet house. And every now and then, Officer Jonathan stopped by, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to say hello. One sunny afternoon, a few months later, he drove by Oak Street again. The sound of children's laughter filled the air. Susie was playing in the front yard with a puppy, her giggles echoing like music. Mariah stood nearby, talking with neighbors, her face glowing with health and happiness. Jonathan parked for a moment, watching quietly. A deep sense of peace washed over him. This was why he became a cop. Not for the authority, not for the uniform, but for moments like this, where kindness ripples outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict. As the evening breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine across the street, Jonathan thought back to that night, the sound of a little girl's desperate cry, the pounding of his heart as he followed her down those dark streets. If he had ignored it, if he had brushed it off as a child's tantrum, Mariah might not have survived. But because one small voice dared to ask for help, an entire community remembered what compassion looked like. He smiled, watching Susie chase her puppy through the grass. The world could be cruel, yes, but it could also be astonishingly kind. Sometimes, he whispered to himself, it just takes one brave heart to remind the rest of us how to care. And as he drove away, the golden light of sunset bathed the little white house on Oak Street, a symbol of second chances, of love rekindled, and of the miracle that begins when someone decides to listen. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.